Welcome back. In this podcast, we're going to do our weekly feature of Brain in the News. There's so many articles in the news every week that related to the brain. But before we do, let's read a review. Do you want to read that one?
Sure. My husband has done 58 dives in a hard side HBOT chamber, which is hyperbaric oxygen therapy. It has changed his life and his brain. Toxic burn pit exposure from Afghanistan and Iraq. Ouch. We are fighting to get this widely recognized by the VA. Awesome. From Kiwi Kelly. So I'm actually doing HBOT therapy right now as well. And so is your dad. And so are a lot of our patients.
You want a better brain. If your brain is sleepy, hyperbaric oxygen.
Or if you've got a brain injury, right?
Healthy. Right. And my dad's actually doing it because, he had a challenge that just came from being older. I mean, the older we get, the less blood flow there is to the brain. All right. We have all sorts of studies. We'll probably only get to about 4 of them, but there's this new study on ashwagandha that it lowers stress and improves sleep. And interesting, we actually have ashwagandha in our focus and energy product. And focus and energy, people think, oh, it's like a caffeine drink. It's like, no, it's got no caffeine, no sugar. It's got ashwagandha, rhodiola, ginseng, green tea, and choline. So, and the reason that ashwagandha is there is it lowers stress but helps you focus at the same time. So this study was actually done in India. A total of 60 participants were randomly divided into 2 groups, the ashwagandha group and the placebo group. And what they found in the ashwagandha group, significant improvement in sleep and anxiety and stress scores.
Wow.
And it was the same dose that we actually have in focus and energy.
That's so interesting. So focus and energy, but gives you focus and energy, but helps you sleep.
Helps you sleep and decreases your anxiety and stress.
That's wild. Well, this one freaked me out. So this study that came from the University of Washington. Oh, wait, back up. Yeah. Let me start over. All right, well, this one freaked me out. This study talks about 2 types of drugs you may want to avoid for the sake of your brain: benzodiazepines and anticholinergics. Well, benzos were obvious for a long time.
And we've talked about it. So benzos are medications like Xanax, or the generic is alprazolam, Ativan, Valium. And I stopped prescribing them because there was research that came out that showed there was a higher incidence of dementia, just what this study is showing. And I didn't like how they looked on scans.
Right. But the one that really freaked me out was the anticholinergics, because we'll talk about why in a second. But this is from the University of Washington. They studied 3,500 people, and they took people 65 and over, and over a 10-year period looked at all the drugs they had taken. During that time, during the study, 800 of them developed dementia. What they found was benzodiazepines and anticholinergics were involved, and they could increase your risk of dementia by 54%. So anticholinergics, let's talk about what those are, because they've been touted as sort of the safe sleeping pill, right? So Benadryl, the Advil PM, right? That's they've got anticholinergics in them. They help you get sleepy. We used to give it in the hospital when we didn't want to give sleeping pills. And so whenever I'd be like if we traveled to a different time zone and I had to be up early to be on TV with you or something, I would take Advil PM because I thought, oh, well, that's safe. I rarely take it, but I would take it now and then. And then what happened is after surgery, I started not sleeping as well after I had anesthesia and wasn't doing as well. And when you travel, when you would come home, you tend to snore the night after you get back. I have no idea why. But when he travels and he's on planes, he snores when you get back. And so when he would snore, I would get up and take Benadryl.
So you're saying I was ruining your brain?
Yes.
It's my fault?
Yeah, well, now that I know, I'm not going to let you ruin my brain. So we'll figure out another solution. But my point being, the anticholinergics that I thought were fairly safe for sleep are not safe for sleep. So now I'm going back to my very natural ways, which I've got a whole criteria of ways that I sleep. But so I've got a whole list of things I do with my thyroid condition. But But that is not a safe way to sleep, and it increases your risk of dementia by 54%. Are you kidding me? Now, that's for regular use, but when I saw my scan and saw that it was sleepier than usual, between the anesthesia, I'm pretty sure the anticholinergics didn't help. So, yeah.
Wow.
Scary.
Well, this is an article that'll just make you cry. 9-year-old arsonist charged with first-degree murder in mobile home fire that killed 5 relatives, including 3 toddlers, as mother insists he's not a monster and just made a mistake. So the mother of a 9-year-old boy from Illinois who has been charged with murder in connection to a deadly arson fire that killed most of his immediate family has spoken out for the first time, saying that the child suffers from mental illness and is not a monster. Katrina Alwood appeared on CBS this morning, 2 days after her sole surviving child, Kyle, was charged with 5 counts of first-degree murder. He'd been identified as having mental health challenges. Did you know that it is 11 years between the time a child first has their symptoms? It's 11 years between that time and the time they're actually diagnosed and get help.
But he was
diagnosed.
And
the mother said everyone is looking at him as if he's some kind of monster, and people make this mistake all the time. It's a horrible tragedy, no question. But
he was diagnosed. Was he being treated?
I don't know. The article doesn't say that. But to bring criminal charges is just a bit insane. Now, you have to understand it. You have to protect other people around him.
Yeah,
but
this is a
you
tricky
have to
one.
understand and protect him. And, you know, my passion story is about my
Andrew.
9-year-old nephew who attacked a little girl on the baseball field for no reason.
He had a
And he had a cyst the size of a golf ball occupying the space of his left temporal lobe. Or Jared, a story that we talk about
who I just saw
a lot, who had rages as a young person and had been put on multiple medications that only made the rages worse, had a pattern in his brain called the Ring of Fire, that when you look at people who do bad things, not always, but often they have a troubled brain that, if known, could be fixed.
Yeah, see, I would want to know more about the diagnosed mental illness on this one. That we talked about the can of worms about how drugs can change your personality in our previous podcast this week. And this is the slippery slope.
Well, actually, the mom said on TV that the boy had recently been diagnosed with schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, and ADHD. So he was probably hearing voices, delusional,
then we have a responsibility too.
Mood swings.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm sure no one looked at his brain to know, because anytime you get those diagnoses
Especially
in
at 9.
combination at 9 years old, something's severely wrong with that child's brain. And, you know, the current day prescriptions are this medicine, that medicine, without really trying to understand.
Yeah, scary. Okay, so more than 250 million children and teenagers will be obese by 2030. That's really scary. Even in China, which they've never really had an obesity issue in the past, is expected to have 61.9 million obese 5 to 19-year-olds. This is just crazy. This is 34.5 million more than India, which is second place at 27.4. The US is third with 16.9 million youth. The UK comes in 36th with 1.3. And this is expected to completely this pandemic will overwhelm health services, with many countries being unable to cope with the demand of diabetes drugs and weight loss surgery. The increase shows a critical failure of government to respect and protect. I want to read that again. This increase shows a critical failure of government to respect and protect our children's rights to good health. But I want to go further than that. They won't even do the basic things like labeling food properly. That's what irritates me. Don't label things as health food that aren't health food, and label them correctly about what the risks are. At the very least, educate people. Don't just allow them to sell vape pens and foods and things like that you know are terrible for you.
It's a war.
It's a war.
I mean, that's
why we talk
why
about
we do the Brain Warriors Way podcast when that number of children will be obese.
It makes me wonder if the agenda is to keep people sick, fat, and depressed so you just have more control. It's bizarre. I know it's a conspiracy theory, but it's my theory.
I think it's ignorance.
Well, I do too, but.
Okay. From JAMA, there's an association of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder with teenage birth among girls and women in Sweden. So what it says, so people go, why is ADD or ADHD increasing in the population? If you take 100 years, an ADD family will have 5 generations and more children per generation.
They're more impulsive.
Where a non-ADD family will only have 4 generations. And
so they're getting pregnant.
So on average, women have their first baby at the age of 26. But on average, if a girl has ADD or ADHD, she has her first baby at the age of 20 because of the impulsivity. So
there's a whole other generation involved.
Goes along with it. And so that all by itself, so an ADD girl is likely to get pregnant earlier and have more babies, where a non-ADD girl or woman is going to have her babies later and fewer of them. And when they were treated with medication, they had decreased pregnancy.
That makes sense.
So because the medication actually helped them be less impulsive. I just thought that was really
well, if you look at the difference between, like, I've got 2 friends. One clearly has ADD from hell and one does not. You know, the one planned out her family and went, how many kids can I afford? When can I afford to start? You know, the other one was like, what difference does that make? Like, you'll figure it out, and just started popping out babies. It's very different how they think. So, yeah.
Wow. All right. What one thing did you learn during Brain in the News? Powerful articles posted on any of your social media sites, hashtag Brain Warriors Way podcast. Also leave us a review at Brain Warriors Way podcast or on Apple Podcasts, and or leave us a question or a comment. And when you do, we'll enter you into a raffle to get one of Tana's amazing cookbook, the Brain Warriors Way cookbook. Stay with us. We're going to answer your questions next.
If you're enjoying the Brain Warriors Way podcast, please don't forget to subscribe so you'll always know when there's a new episode. And while you're at it, feel free to give us a review or 5-star rating, as that helps others find the podcast.
If you're considering coming to Amen Clinics or trying some of the brain healthy supplements from BrainMD, you can use the code podcast10 to get a 10% discount on a full evaluation at amenclinics.com, or a 10% discount on all supplements at brainmdhealth.com. For more information, give us a call at 855-978-1363.